So, Deputy Helyar, your assessment of the outcome at the end of that debate today?
It's not unexpected, to be honest with you. We picked up a couple more votes. It's a shame that Deputy Latok wasn't there because he's been taken ill today, but ultimately states members didn't want to go for GST. But we have agreed a package that will include 190 million of smaller projects and also the hospital project and 150 million of borrowing for housing.
So the position that you now find yourself in as the Treasury lead at P&R, you think this is now a workable situation?
Well, we said very clearly in the policy letter that options 1 and 2, and effectively what we ended up with was the core programme plus option 1 amended with the hospital, was not going to be sustainable in the long term. So part of the instructions to P&R is to come back to the States in 2026 with a view to making our income more sustainable, which is what we've just been debating.
So this is effectively a stopgap solution, really. You have spent quite some time now pressing the case for GST. That has now presumably pretty much been put to bed until at least 2026. It's dead for this state's term, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's quite clear that this group of states members is not going to vote for any kind of progressive package in relation to tax.
Is GST the only means by which you can put forward a progressive solution for tax, do you think?
Not necessarily, but after 3 years of work, it's the only means that we can find of doing it fairly, spreading and broadening the tax base across the whole population at the same time as actually helping out the poorest in our society, and states members just didn't want to do that.
I've heard from one deputy already that there's going to be a call for the heads of PNR. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's what I would expect. If it's the same member as I think, he's been calling for that since pretty much the election, so it's not really a surprise. Deputy Fairbrush has already announced that we are going to be putting a motion to the States for an early general election.
And when will that take place?
As soon as SAC can organise it. We think that will probably be July next year, but it all depends on the timing in order to get all the paperwork done, but also they need to update the electoral register.
And in your discussions around that decision, have you all determined whether you're standing in that or not? Are you going to? I
haven't made any decision on that yet. This has been incredibly challenging for the last 3 years, and I'm really pretty tired, to be quite honest with you, and this is an exhausting week as well, so it's not the right time to make a decision.
One might imagine that with GST having fallen now, the next few months up till the next election when it was planned to be might have been dominated by talk of all the things we can't afford to do anymore, perhaps bringing the public along the journey that you've been on to realising that we do actually need a GST. Calling a snap election, isn't that going to increase the possibility of making the election all about GST?
Well, we're not calling for a snap election. It's 6, 7, 8 months away. That's plenty of time. As I said in the debate, the problem isn't going to change. It doesn't really matter who you have looking at it. You've got the same options all over again. The issue we have is we have an impasse in the House, and you really need some fresh eyes to look at it in order to reconsider whether some of the options that we've looked at are palatable for the public or not.
You've described the debate as surprisingly conciliatory, or there wasn't perhaps as much argy-bargy as some might have thought, but it's quite a drastic outcome, isn't it, at the end of all that, to have some funding in place, the hospital modernisation approved, but nevertheless needing to have a change of faces in there?
Well, we said to states members this is the only realistic option to stabilise our financial situation, and states members simply don't want to do that. So it's difficult to really provide any other advice that would help this to move forward. There is an impasse in the House, and we need to change that.
And when that election process is complete, there'll be, whether it's yourself or somebody else in that chair as P&R Treasury lead. If it's not you, what advice would you pass on to them?
That's a very interesting one to ask. I think this is a really challenging job, and I've probably had it at one of the worst times there's ever been, right in the middle of COVID, 2 lockdowns, coming out of COVID. It took 16 months to do that of this, and then we've been doing the tax review pretty much flat out ever since I started. So it's just been tax for me. I said to states members, don't come and ask for any money. And that really is the message. If you're going to be the Treasury lead going forwards, you really are going to have to be very, very difficult with people, because you have no executive authority. It's really just force of personality that prevents these things happening.